Okay, hi, I'm Mike Skrypnek, CEO and founder of GrowgetGive Coaching, and I've started this video series to ask the simple question, how do you live your GrowgetGive life? In the next roughly 20 to 30 minutes, you're going to hear important secrets, tips, and tricks shared by successful entrepreneur business owners. And now we're also interviewing our GrowgetGive Coaching Book Mastery Program graduate authors. And today's guest is Theresa Lambert. And Theresa, thank you so much for accepting this invitation to share your story with other entrepreneur owners.
That's awesome. I'm so glad to be here. It's so fun. And I'm so glad that I was part of your program. And I'm now a actually #1 best-selling published author, even
Whoop,
better.
Whoop, whoop. Awesome. We love best-selling authors. It works. But we really love recognized authorities who are authors. And this is what I want to share a little bit. And usually I have people tell a little bit about themselves, and I'll give you an opportunity, but I'll do a little intro for you so that you don't have to tell everybody, and I can share how great you are. Theresa's an author, a mastery transformational coach. She's a mindset strategist, motivational speaker, facilitator, and practical intuitive guide. After spending 3 years studying human performance and behavior, Theresa combined her hospitality and leadership experience with a coaching framework to help her ambitious, successful, high achiever clients, just like her, forge ahead and achieve success with grace, regardless of uncertainty. She drew from her 20 years, almost 20 years experience in the hospitality industry, rising to a height of general manager in an extraordinarily beautiful and intense job. And so Theresa preaches stepping back, stepping away, calming and decreasing the overwhelm so you can achieve with grace. Theresa, thank you so much for showing up. And I hope I did a good job of that intro for you.
Yes, you did. Absolutely.
So my life and business philosophy, of course, is outlined in my recent 3-volume book, Entrepreneur Secrets to a Grow, Get, Give Life. And in it, I share over 90 secrets of how to ensure that entrepreneurs find success by teaching them better ways to grow their business, get more freedom, and give back. And so I want to ask you some questions. So Theresa, you're a business and an impact-minded business owner and coach, and leaders do set the bar so for others, and you're definitely one of them. And I'm hoping you can share some of your Grow, Get, Give secrets with other entrepreneurs as they seek their own success and impact. So maybe we can start by sharing a little more about you that maybe I didn't share, your business, why you do it, and how you serve people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've already sort of mentioned that I'm a coach and also a speaker. I love sharing. And the reason that I've really gotten into this is that throughout my tenure and my career as a general manager, I always felt this need to prove myself, not just, as a person, but also as a woman in business. And there was this immense pressure to show up, and success to me looked a certain way, like working 80 hours, always being busy, always being switched on. And so ultimately, 3 years into that role, I burnt out and I started to lose the passion I had for what I called a dream job. And I felt really stuck and restricted by this ideal dream life that I had built for myself. And so what I realized, and when I hit burnout, was that something's just not working. It was like I was trying to fit myself in a dress that I had outgrown. And the more I tried to stay in the dress, the more things like ripped open, in terms of my health, my sanity, my relationships, and my ability to move forward. And so, through that struggle, I found, my message, I guess, in that messiness and in that time by starting to study, coaching, human behavior, trying to figure out how can we find balance when we're in intense workplaces, how can we lead with a calm and elegant and focused approach when literally the kitchen is on fire. And so that's sort of how my journey started. And throughout this self-exploration process, really, and trying to find answers for myself, because I didn't go into this with the thought that I wanted to do something else. I went into it with the thought of how can I create a better life for myself? How can I make this work for me in this scenario? I found my passion for coaching people. I found my passion for just lifting other people up and helping them really figure out, you know, how can we build a life we want? Why do it in a way that feels awesome and light and allows us to have more fun? And so that's really how I ended up, you know, coming full circle and then deciding actually only last fall to jump into my coaching and consulting business full time this January. A wild ride.
It has been a wild ride. So we have a little bit of instability in our internet connection. I may pause things once in a while. It's all good. I just wanted to share that with you and with the audience. It's hard to edit these things out sometimes. So Theresa, now one of the things that I admire when I met you, first of all, you were very clear on getting things done. Now you probably were trained really well and learned to be extraordinarily deadline focused, driven to get things done. And as I always say, you know, it's like the smooth swan sailing on the water, and the feet are just like going like crazy to paddle along. That was like your permanent existence. And I've got to imagine that that's difficult, especially not only in a frontline, in a customer sense, but boy, just, you know, being calm and showing composure with the people that you lead. And so coaching seems like a natural, because you constantly had to give people that, yeah, okay, well, there might be literally, like you said, the kitchen's on fire, and it probably was some days, and there's probably 10 other things going on wrong, and someone's having a meltdown, and you're, you know, the voice of reason. So tell me a little bit about that. You know, it plays a lot into why you decided to write your book and share, you know, the knowledge you have or the wisdom you gained from that.
Yeah, you know, I think that one thing that I came to terms with is that in order to lead others through chaos, really, and to thrive in chaos, you have to really understand yourself and how you respond. And, you know, self-awareness is something I talk about all the time. And it's this huge way for me of living my life now. But when you understand what's going on for yourself, like how, you know, how you think, what thoughts come up and what words leave your mouth, you know, not just subconsciously, but consciously. And you start to understand how that impacts outcomes. When you really understand that, you're able to actually respond even when, you know, things go sideways, or, you know, it's intense and there is pressure. Because the problem is, when we don't understand our own response and our own reaction to a problem, it's really difficult to respond. Instead, we react, right? So that's when also in the workplace, you see people snap or say something that, and then they regret it because they're like, it was out of line, and then it just blows up, right? Like it creates more problems. And so, interestingly enough, I think what it does, the self-awareness, it teaches you the patience, and it teaches you the skill to be able to only take out of the situation what you really need, and sort of manage your emotions a little bit better so you can respond in a way that works. And it really, you know, it sort of brushes down on your team as well, because as a leader, you set the tone. So if you're stressed and frantic, and, you know, you've mentioned, like, I move pretty fast. So I had to also, for me, adjust my speed and like take it a few notches back and allow myself to slow down, which was probably the toughest thing for me to do, so that other people can keep up with that as well.
Right, right. It's really critical. I mean, I know from my own experience, being a highly adaptive, highly initiating kind of person, you have to understand that most people aren't on that wavelength. And quite frankly, your 10 ideas don't matter anything to them, because they're just trying to figure out number one. And learning how to communicate is an extraordinary skill. You know, I don't know if I mentioned the book name, but I have to mention the book name again, because I think I said it anyways in a sentence. But Achieve with Grace is the name of the book, and it's definitely available on Amazon. As you said, you achieved a #1 bestseller status quickly. One of the things is not that you just talk about, you know, where you came from and the wisdom you gain by the experiences you've had, but you give people actionable clear instructions. You have your own process to deal with and to rise to that achievement level while in stressful or overwhelmed situations. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, it was really important that in that book, I would give people something that they could take back to their own lives and apply it, and it creates this positive ripple effect. The self-awareness piece that I talked about, that is in my process, what I call your story. We all have these stories we tell ourselves about us, our life, and what we experience. And, it's interesting because so many of those stories are just made up stories, and we can choose to change the story. And so that's why that step is so critical, because you need to know what your story is, and then you need to know what you actually want to change, and then make that decision to change it. And so that's where the sort of second step comes in, which is all about intention. Like, how can you use what you've learned about yourself and what you want, your vision and your goals? How can you be super intentional to put that into motion, whether it's with how you spend your time or how you respond to people, and also how you look after yourself. I'm notorious to put myself like on, I don't know what list, but it's not on my radar anymore. So putting myself on that priority list wasn't an easy thing to me, because one of my stories was that it was a waste of time. And so I needed to change that story, that looking after myself and being kind to myself and giving myself space, that doesn't sound like a waste of time. So, I laugh about it now, but back then I was like, self-care? What the hell is that? Like, that's for slackers. I was like, that is not for me. And so when we sort of redefine what it is that we want, we can get intentional and show up. And I just love that. And then the last piece for me is sort of this energy piece. I shared that I burnt out through this process, but I feel like if we put energy into anything we do, it just changes. Like, it just changes how we show up, and it just changes how we perceive life. And, without energy, having the energy to do what we love, having the energy to show up in our work, show up for our families, show up for ourselves, it really doesn't matter. And that energy piece, I think, is what so many people always talk about. Like, I always like to say, if you imagine you're at an event and then this one person walks in the room, and instantly you're kind of captivated by this person, but you can't really wrap your head around, what it is, but you're kind of like drawn to them. And then as you talk to them, you might find that you have a lot in common, but there's something different about them. And that's that energy, that's that passion. And, we can all have that.
Yeah,
we just have to choose to. So, yeah.
People bring skills to the table, they bring experience to the table, but really what it is you're asking them to bring a high degree of emotional awareness, emotional IQ. And that is I think nowadays people are really investigating what that means. I overheard a job interview recently, and it was the standard questions. It was like, tell me about the time when you had adversity, and all that same BS, right? And really, in a rote situation like an interview, you don't learn where people's acknowledgement of that emotional awareness is, because that's through actions. Like, true emotional awareness and applying it the right way is applying it. And it's really in the actions. Like, believe none of what you hear, some of what you read, exactly, you understand what you see, right? And what you see, and then actions in people. So let me ask you this. So let's step back a bit. Let's go back to your book. You did have a book writing journey. And so what was the book writing journey for you? What was that like?
Wow. I mean, that I rewrote that first chapter like 3 or 4 times, I think. I think that what ended up happening was that the book writing journey and writing that book, it was really soul cleansing for me, and it put a lot of things in perspective and gave me clarity. Like, I didn't even have like this process that I talk about, the 3 steps. Mm-hmm. I had them, but I didn't have them as clearly. And so the book writing process in that sense really helped me to digest and put what I teach into words that I didn't have before, which was pretty cool. So it was this process that evolved. And, I learned again to step back and to slow down. And, you know, we always like, it's so funny because what we teach is the same things we need.
Of course.
And so I still work on that. And, you know, I had a pretty like aggressive like deadline for myself. And then I moved it, and I did still, you know, get the book written and published, I guess, fairly quickly, which for me, I think it was 5 months. But for me, 5 months on one project is a very long time. So it's all in perspective to who people are, I guess. But yeah, it was just cleansing. And, you know, some days I wanted to throw that laptop out, and you helped me not to do that. So that was really good. But, you know, I think it was really soul cleansing. So, you know, I think if I would almost say for anyone who's a coach or a leader or like, you know, for anyone who cares about making an impact, writing a book, even if you don't publish it, like even if you just write the thing from start to finish and have it, although I think you should publish it, but even if you were to do that, I think that people would be able to digest and understand, you know, themselves and what the impact they want to leave so much more clearly. And that's why I call it soul cleansing. For me, it was a way to digest, to reset, and to gain clarity on what is that path looking like moving forward, and how can I make that impact on other people. And that was huge.
Well, I mean, thank you for sharing that, because when we sat down originally, there was some clear things that mattered to you. And you know, connecting it with why you even wanted to begin the whole process in the first place was pretty clear. But what you wanted to say, how you wanted to say it, and how you wanted to convey it to the rest of the world, really was really evolved. And you know, that's one of the beauties of a journey. And when we take it together, we're able to kind of discover those things, and you can get that objective thing, because it's almost so impossible to get outside of our heads. And then when our heads are involved in our paper or our pens or our computers, it's like, how do we get out of the matrix, you know? And what I was really impressed with is not the speed with which you got through the process. Like, really, you wrote a book in 4 months. And our program is 6 months, and quite frankly, most people take longer. It's just kind of the way it goes. Writing is a thing. It's a journey. But you can get it done in less time, and, you know, in the timing. And really, it was about putting the bows and the wrapping paper on it at the end. So you really crushed a schedule. But even more so, what you were able to do, what impressed me, Theresa, is your ability to synthesize all the different ideas that were pulling at you, and take some direction as well, and bring that into the clarity you needed to send a message, deliver something. And even as a book, you know, we're all better writers at the end. So it's hard to ever finish one, because we look back at what we started with and we're like, oh man, I could do that so much better. But what you gain from it, that clarity that you gain from it, the messaging, and you're right, anybody who is considering how to deliver their message or help others or impact the world clearly needs to go through the process, because if anything, it just clarifies your message.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think it's also, you know, one of the things that I think is so critical, and maybe, you know, I think for all of us, it doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur or if you're not, like, it doesn't matter what you do. I think being willing to evolve and being willing to adapt and to naturally change and to listen to what's coming in, and then adapting to that and being open to it. Like, when you follow this change as more of a natural process rather than resisting it, and I'm talking a lot about that right now because we're heading into fall,
Yeah.
then, you know, I think you can create magical things. And that doesn't just mean a book, but that just generally means in your life, because so often we fight that. And so I appreciate that you mentioned it, because it did, like, from the first conversation we had in, was it February, I think?
Yeah,
To, you know, where it ended up was like so like the concept at the start, and then at the end I was like, wow, okay, that came a long way. And it needed to evolve, it needed to adjust, and yeah, I let it. And I think that's something that you know, evolving has always been a big deal for me. Like, I'm a big I guess I'm a bit of a growth junkie in that sense, that I always want to know how can I evolve and how can I, sort of improve, but maybe not obsessively, but in a way that just brings me more joy. And yeah, that book writing journey, definitely, it just helped me put so many things in perspective. I really needed to do that.
So thanks. And let me ask you this. So now you're an author, you're out there with more clarity. How has it helped you, position yourself and your business, or in what you're doing, or the impact you're trying to have?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, it's that expert status in that sort of area now. I have a clear message. I stand all about, how can we succeed, but in an elegant way with less struggle. What does that look like? And, just having that clarity, it just makes things easier. So now when I reach out, about like guest speaking opportunities, or even like, for articles, I have a very clear message. I know what I'm good at talking about, if you will, right? What I'm an expert in, and you can own that. And that just gives you also that extra confidence. And I think it's the confidence that you also need when you're out there in this marketplace that is competitive, but to be able to show up and say, hey, this is what I do, and this is what I talk about. And there might be other people that talk about that, but there's only one person that talks about it and delivers it in the way that I do. And right. To just know that credibility, that, expert status, even for yourself, it just really helps you to be focused and move forward in your business. And I think that's really important, because it's easy to get confused. There's loads of golden shiny objects, we're like going this way, and we're going that way, and we're going here, and we're going there. And so the book, the expert status, it gives you focus, and it's like, boom, here's what I do. It's like, there it is. Yeah.
So now I always like to go through some real key steps, so the messages might be for other people to learn from. Like, not only has this been really helpful in terms of understanding the book writing journey, the process, and what you achieved while doing it, I also talk about my Grow, Get, Give mantra and the philosophy about growing. And for book writers, in this whole book author interview series that I'm doing, is really, like I always say, to grow your business, you need to build a mountain of credibility, and a book places you at the very top. So I'm not going to ask you for tips on marketing, because you just crushed it by putting your book out there and rising to the top of your mountain of credibility. But I am going to ask you for 2 tips for everybody else. What you maybe learned, or what you can share, is number 1 is the other step, which is get, and there's give as well. But let's ask you about get. It's about getting more freedom. And I created freedom rules so I could enjoy my life, be more creative, and not feel time pressure or the stress of everything, and just be happy. And so maybe you could share a get secret with everybody else. Maybe it was about the book writing process, or maybe it's just something that you think is valuable to share in terms of getting more freedom.
Yeah, I think, that getting more freedom, I think it comes back to what I just shared with knowing your message. Because when you're unclear of, where you're heading, and, or what you're talking about, or what you stand for, you rob yourself of a lot of time and energy to figure that out. And so, what I got specifically from this process, but also from this entrepreneur journey so far, is just that, when we slow down and we let things evolve, and we start to hone in on what do we own, what's that one thing, when you pick it, you create spaciousness and space for yourself to create, and space also to still adapt, right? Like, we're not labeled with that forever, but it just opens up so much possibility. And so, this freedom piece that you get out of it is just, so much of it is peace of mind. And when you have peace of mind, when you have that calm, you don't have to work that much.
Yeah, no, it's
right?
funny, I actually I put the concept of mastery into get more freedom, which some people might say, I don't know why mastery and freedom all fit together, but it's exactly that premise. When you're a master, when you achieve mastery in something, you often hear people describe how, well, everything slowed down. right? When someone's racing down a ski hill or a mountain bike trail or whatever it is, or it's like a high competition playoff in team sports, they say, no, the whole thing slowed down for me. And what that means is you can elevate and you can think and you can create. And that's when that magic happens. So mastery, achievement, understanding your baseline and what that is and raising it means that you just have more freedom to be better. Thank you. So lastly, I'd like to ask another question, and this is my most important one. This is why people connect with me in the first place. Impact mindset is everything, and giving back in some way, either for yourself, your community, your family, or the causes that matter to you, really makes a difference in my world and yours. So share maybe something you've learned, a give back tip. How do you give back for bigger impact?
I think that a lot of people are always scared to give value, even, through, their social media channels or whatever. As an entrepreneur, I would consider myself a thought leader. Giving back and giving value for me is super, super important. So I share as much value as I can through free workshops, through speaking, so that it is not an inaccessible message, and people can just take that small piece, it might be a small piece out of the universe or the empire I'm creating, but they can get tremendous value from that. And I think that, one tip on giving back is that the more we give, the more we get back. So the more value you provide, the more can come in, rather than feeling like, oh, I'm not sharing that one thing because it's too, juicy. It's like, no, like, imagine if you're sharing that, what can come back to you. So, that is one way I would say, is just always showing up with that value mindset. And then, community wise, I'm on, I do a couple of volunteer roles. I'm on the House Sound Community Futures Board of Directors, which is like, I like to call it like the dragon's den of the sea to sky, supporting small business owners and entrepreneurs on their journey. That's a really great initiative, and I love doing that. And I'm also the chair of the Women of Whistler, actively advocating for mentorship and growth for women in the sea to sky. And so, yeah, I mean, I love giving back. I love being involved in the community, and I love sharing and giving value. And I'm a true believer that what you radiate out comes back. It might even come back tenfold. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's so much more joy in the giving anyways. People on the other end don't necessarily acknowledge it the same way, but when you have gratitude for how you give and you enjoy that, it's perfectly fine to get joy out of giving. And quite frankly, you appreciate it more than the other people anyways. So, there's studies that prove that there's more happiness for the giver. So
that is very true.
Don't give till it hurts. Give till you laugh your head off.
Yeah.
Okay. So, so anyways, lastly, Theresa, where can people find you? Where can they, again, find your book? Maybe share some details. If we're looking for you, if we thought, boy, I'm inspired to talk to Theresa today, how do I reach you?
Yeah, the easiest way probably, well, there's a couple of options, but I would say the easiest way these days is you can find me on my Instagram at Theresa Lambert Coaching, and just shoot me a DM. And from there, in my bio, there's all sorts of links to my website and where you can buy the book and all that stuff. But yeah, the Instagram at Theresa Lambert Coaching, I hang out there a lot. So if you want to connect, if you want to say hi, just come on by. You can follow me if it feels like a fit, or just shoot me a DM and let's have a chat.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Theresa, for sharing your wisdom with me and our listeners or viewers today. Good luck with Achieve with Grace and everything else you're doing to help other women gain get their grace under pressure, right? I'm Mike Skrypnek, CEO and founder of GrowgetGive Coaching. If you want more information about how our coaching family members are growing their businesses, getting more freedom and giving back, please reach out to me at info@mikeskrypnek.com. My name's tough, but it's all over the images. Find us and follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, and head to growgetgive.com for more. Have an amazing day, Theresa, and all of you have an amazing day as well.
Bye.
See ya.